Hello and welcome to the first episode of Medisodes. Every week we're going to be discussing the leading contemporary topics within medicine. And today we're starting with COVID vaccines. What's the difference between the different types? We're going to kick off with Surya, who's going to be talking about the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine.
So the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine was the first vaccine to be approved by the MHRA, which is the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. The Pfizer vaccine is an mRNA vaccine. So for those of you who are wondering what an mRNA vaccine is, I'll explain this. mRNA is a strand of genetic material which contains the instructions needed to make a specific protein, such as antibodies. When an mRNA COVID vaccine, such as the Pfizer vaccine, is injected into the body, the lipid nanoparticle which carries the mRNA vaccine enters the cells in the body, and the mRNA instructs the cells to make the protein spikes that would be found on the surface of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. These spike proteins then activate the cell's immune system. B lymphocytes, which are a type of white blood cell, then bind to these protein spikes, resulting in the production of antibodies against the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Also, the production of memory lymphocytes means that the immune system can also remember how to make the antibodies against the spike protein, meaning that if the virus does enter the body again, the memory lymphocytes can assist in a rapid production of antibodies to help fight the virus quickly. This is how the Pfizer vaccine works. And mRNA vaccines have a unique advantage because they do not need to use a weakened version of the actual virus in order to be made. This means that these vaccines can be produced relatively quickly compared to traditional vaccines, crucial in a situation where time can't be wasted. Another major advantage of these mRNA vaccines is that they can be modified relatively quickly to fight new variants of a virus. This was also crucial in terms of the coronavirus situation due to the UK, Brazilian, and South African variant being a major cause of concern. mRNA vaccines are also relatively cheaper than traditional vaccines, with the Pfizer vaccine costing £14.71 per dose. Currently, the Pfizer vaccine has been approved in the UK, the US, and the EU. The components for the vaccine are now grown in culture in Germany by BioNTech and sent to Belgium, where it is bottled and made ready for distribution. In terms of distributing the vaccine to the UK, the vaccine is sent to NHS depots. From there, batches of thousands of doses of the vaccine are sent to GPs and hospitals. Trials and studies have led to the conclusion that the Pfizer vaccine has an efficacy of 90%. In phase 2 and 3 trials of the vaccine, there were 8,000 participants who were aged 18 or older. The only side effects to be noted were headaches and fatigue, but headaches only occurred with 2% of participants and fatigue with only 3.8%. In terms of doses, 2 doses are given and they are separated by 21 days. The major disadvantage of the Pfizer vaccine is that it has to be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius, increasing the difficulty and cost of transportation and storage.
And now on to the Oxford vaccine. The Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine was the second vaccine to be approved for use in the UK on the 30th of December 2020. As the name suggests, this vaccine was developed by Oxford University and British-Swedish pharmaceutical company AstraZeneca. The Oxford vaccine is made from a weakened version of the common cold virus that has been modified so that it has antigens on its surface similar to COVID-19. When your body is infected by a virus, your body will react to the antigens on its surface and produce antibodies to combat it. Then, memory cells in the blood, a special type of white blood cell, will remember those antigens. So if you do come into contact with these antigen viruses again, your body will recognize them and you can quickly produce antibodies, destroying the virus before you get an infection. The Oxford vaccine has been modified such that the virus has a similar antigen coating to COVID-19. So your body will react in a similar way to this virus as it will to COVID-19. The virus for modification came from a chimpanzee and has been modified using genetic engineering. So the DNA has been altered to change the spike proteins on its surface so that it resembles a COVID-19 virus. The Oxford vaccine has a double jab delivery and its efficiency varies on the time between the 2 jabs. Initially, in the UK, as the vaccines were being rolled out, the focus of the government was to get as many people through the double jab delivery as possible, so the initial plan was to have a 4-week gap between doses. However, following advice from the Joint Committee of Vaccination and Immunisation, the aim has now shifted to give as many vulnerable people some protection from COVID-19. So the gap between doses has been changed to 12 weeks. Backing this change is unpublished research data from the University of Oxford that suggests that increasing the time between doses increases the efficiency of the vaccine. The efficiency of a single dose of the Oxford vaccine has been shown to be 76%, and this rises to 82% after the full 2 doses, based on the 3-month interval that's being used in the UK right now. However, there is some evidence that if, instead of 2 full doses, a half dose and a full dose are administered, that the overall efficiency increases to 90%. However, there's not enough evidence as of now to support this claim. The major advantage of this vaccine is that it can be stored in a normal fridge, which means that transportation and storage is much cheaper and means that the vaccine is accessible to more people. However, one of the disadvantages is that a study has shown that this Oxford vaccine offers only limited protection against a mild disease caused by the South African variant of coronavirus. This study involved 2,000 young people with no underlying health conditions. Oxford and AstraZeneca are already working on optimizing their vaccine for the Kent and South African variants of coronavirus, and they have said that the new improved vaccine will be ready for delivery in the autumn. In terms of cost, the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine is one of the cheapest, coming in at about £3 per jab, which allows for the vaccine to be affordable to more countries around the world.
And now I'm going to be talking about the third vaccine to be licensed and authorized in the UK, the Moderna RNA vaccine. And we're going to go over a little bit of history of Moderna first. It was founded in 2010 as Moderna Therapeutics, and it was designed to commercialize stem cell research from the biologist Derek Rossi. It was then rebranded in 2018 as Moderna Incorporated. It signed a deal in 2013 with AstraZeneca to develop mRNA treatments from cardiovascular, metabolic, cancerous, and renal diseases. And that deal involved a $240 million upfront payment to Moderna, which is the largest in the history of pharmaceuticals not involving a drug test. Moderna, however, has been criticized a lot for not publishing peer-reviewed papers on its technology. And a former Moderna scientist even described the company as an investment firm that then hopefully develops a drug that's successful. That drug could be, though, their COVID-19 vaccine. They promised to make it when Trump met with their executives and began Operation Warp Speed. Moderna and Pfizer produced the world's first mRNA vaccines. And as you heard before, the mRNA vaccine works by injecting small bits of nucleotides into a person so that the person produces spike proteins to train their own immune system to recognize the coronavirus. This is obviously aimed at the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and both vaccines have received partial authorization in multiple countries. In Moderna's case, it's been authorized in Canada, the US, Israel, and Singapore with emergency authorization. And then in the European Union, Switzerland, and of course the United Kingdom, it's received full authorization. Here in the UK, it's been obviously the third approved vaccine. It's delivered in 2 jabs of 100 micrograms, 0.5 milliliters each. These doses are given in the upper arm by intramuscular injection, and it's 28 days apart. It must be stored in a standard medical refrigerator at around 2 to 8 degrees Celsius for up to 30 days, or you can store it for up to 4 months at minus 20 degrees Celsius. Now, this is slightly better than the Pfizer vaccine, which needs to be stored at colder temperatures, but it's nowhere near the other more traditional vaccines. In terms of efficacy, as before, Moderna are quite cagey about publishing results, but data from the FDA has shown that as a 94.5% efficacy rate with a 95% confidence interval. So the worst case, its efficacy is 86.5%. And in that initial test group, it was effective in 100% of subjects 65 and older. A lot of countries that have ordered it hope it will be a lot more effective in their older population. In terms of the buyers, Singapore actually signed a pre-purchase agreement in June, but they did not disclose the price and quantity. The United States in August ordered 100 million doses, And Moderna actually sought a price of $50 to $60 per dose, but that later went down to $25 to $37. And in the end, the US ended up paying only $15. The EU, on the other hand, had to pay $18 per dose, but they got 160 million doses. Canada has also purchased 56 million doses, and the UK has secured deals for 7 million doses of the Moderna vaccine.
Okay, and these three are all approved in the UK at the moment, but there are three others that hopefully will be approved in the near future. First is Novavax, which is an American company, and it's got a protein-based vaccine. So similar to viral vector, but instead of getting the body to make the protein spikes, it just injects the protein spikes into the patient directly. And this is how this is a proven technology and has a proven efficacy and safety record. However, it takes longer to produce, which means that it's only in phase 3 trials at the moment, and it won't be ready until March or April. So it's still a bit of the way off, but it's shown to be 95.6% effective against the original coronavirus strain and 89% overall when you factor in other variants, but it's still effective against the UK variant and the South African variant. And it needs to be refrigerated, so that's a big advantage over the Pfizer vaccine. The second vaccine, hopefully, that will be approved in the next few weeks is the Janssen vaccine, which is developed by Johnson & Johnson, another big American pharmaceutical giant, and that's in phase 3 trials. That's a viral vector vaccine, which uses a modified cold virus, just like the AstraZeneca vaccine. And they found that in a study which had 44,000 people, it prevented mild to severe illness in 66% of the people, and it was 85% effective against severe disease. However, although these figures are lower than some of the other vaccines, it's important to note that the Johnson & Johnson Janssen vaccine still provides complete protection against hospitalization and death. And ultimately, that's what we need. We need to reduce hospitalizations and deaths. And it's effective against the South African variant, which is another good thing. And the game changer for the Janssen vaccine is that it's a single dose, which should make it logistically easier, because at the moment, organizing the second dose might be a problem. And having a single dose might be a better option, especially in low income countries. But however, double dose trials are underway to see if that's more effective. It needs to be refrigerated, but it's actually really long lasting. It can be stable for over 2 years if it's stored at -20. And if it's stored in a regular fridge between 2 to 8 degrees, it will still last 2 months. And it obviously helps the logistics a lot. Johnson & Johnson have promised 30 million doses to the UK, and they're hoping to produce 1 billion overall globally. And they're going to donate 500 million to COVAX, which is the World Health Organization's vaccine program. And the COVAX program hopefully is going to deliver vaccines to lower income countries that might not be able to afford the vaccine. And although it's behind schedule, hopefully it'll be approved in the next few weeks. And Johnson & Johnson have said that it'll be not for profit during the pandemic. The third vaccine is the Valneva vaccine, and it uses an inactivated virus, and it's in phase 2 trials at the moment, a bit behind, and it's expected in April. And the UK government has approved, although it's quite late, the UK government has bought 100 million doses, but this is for a view to vaccinate people in late 2021, maybe into 2022. And it's probably more going to be used in case we need to revaccinate people against strains of coronavirus. It probably won't be used in the near future. So now that we've heard about all the vaccines that are being developed at the moment, we're going to talk about some of the key issues that are plaguing and the vaccine programs across the world. So we're going to start with the big story at the moment, which is the EU's vaccine program and their their troubles with AstraZeneca and the dispute over whether AstraZeneca should take vaccines they produce in Britain and give them to the EU.
Yeah, okay. So Shrey, do you want to give people a little bit of insight into what really started that sort of dispute?
So obviously the EU's vaccine program is not going as well as other countries, and especially compared to Britain, I'd say it's not looking too good for the EU. They've not vaccinated, I think, nearly only half the rate of the UK. And basically the EU, AstraZeneca promised the EU, I think, 100 million doses. And AstraZeneca has, in January, said they could not deliver on this target. The EU has threatened to put export controls on vaccines in order to prevent vaccines leaving the EU and to try and help their program. And the main problem with the EU program is that it's being centrally purchased. So the EU Commission has decided to buy vaccines for all the member states. And in principle, this is a good idea because it means that countries in the EU are not fighting each other to get vaccines, and it'll be more equally distributed across the continent. And this is especially useful in Europe because of the Schengen area, because unless every country in the EU has has a high proportion of people vaccinated, the whole because of the borderless travel, this could cause a huge health risk still. The EU was late to approve the vaccines, and it signed its deal with AstraZeneca 3 months after the UK did, and that means that AstraZeneca feel they do not have to supply the EU with the vaccines they produce, because they feel that they need to honour the deal with the UK and other countries as well. And they feel that the wording in the contract means that they don't have to actually deliver 100 million, they just need to deliver to the best of their ability. And the EU has threatened to invoke Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Treaty, which causes outrage on both sides of the border, because this is seen as a nuclear option within the Brexit deal that was signed in December last year. And both sides have condemned the EU, and the EU's had to back down, which was very embarrassing for the EU.
Yeah, obviously this came off the back of Brexit, and so tensions between the EU and the UK, despite the deal that was signed way after a deadline, there are still tensions over trade and things like that. And especially at the border, there was the blockage of trucks, which caused huge backlogs of deliveries in the UK. So obviously this is adding fuel to the fire. And at the end of the day, it's over people's lives, which is quite tough.
Well, all of this is arising because of vaccine distribution, and it's crucial that we ensure that the justice of this is maintained, because currently countries such as the UK and US are acquiring large quantities of the vaccine, and they're depriving other countries of the vaccines, which are halting their vaccination programs. And so this is why the EU are considering like export controls, where manufacturers of the vaccine need to seek approval from the government about how they're going to distribute their vaccine supply. So what do you guys think about the export controls?
I think it's going to be really dangerous what the EU is doing, and I think they back down on that, but they're still going to have some sort of monitoring. And I feel like the EU shouldn't, no country should hoard vaccines, because ultimately, until the whole world is safe, the whole world is vaccinated, coronavirus is not going to go away. And it's a bit pointless to say, oh, we vaccinated everyone in our country, because people from abroad will still be coming in and they'll be spreading it, new variants. And ultimately, we need everyone to be vaccinated. So, yeah.
I mean, this is a problem that we knew would exist ever since people started developing the vaccine, because the demand for the vaccine is instant delivery, and that's obviously not possible. And richer countries can obviously buy the vaccine earlier, and they've got the financial resources to reserve it. And that's why programs like COVAX have been developed to try and spread the vaccine fairly. But recently, it's been a subject of controversy that Canada's reserved some of the vaccines from COVAX. So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think the COVAX program in name, like a lot of the things the World Health Organization and the UN does, in name, it's a great idea. Help countries that don't have the buying power of the US or the UK to get supplies of the vaccine. Because previously it was projected that certain countries in Africa might not even see vaccines until 2022, which is terrifying if you think about it. However, again, Canada dipping into that COVAX reserve, even though they clearly have their own buying power, they bought 56 million Moderna vaccines on their own. It is again quite iffy because you can't really prevent those countries from taking from it. So it's a tricky situation.
I'd also like to say though that rich countries have put a huge amount of money into this COVAX. The UK is the biggest contributor to COVAX, the single biggest, and it's contributed 550 million pounds to the COVAX scheme, and that's a huge amount of money for the EU, not the EU, the UK to give to an international program, and it shows that the UK still wants to see the fair distribution of this vaccine, even though it is prioritizing its own citizens.
Yeah, it's a good balance they've struck, I think.
So now that we're talking about like contributions to what people contribute to making the vaccine, recently there was a report that if you take the top 10 richest people in the world and look at the money they've made so far, just at the start of, so from at the end of 2020 to 2021, they've made over $540 billion, and this is enough for everyone to get the vaccine. And so do you think that rich individuals who are profiting from the current situation should contribute more towards producing vaccines and funding that vaccine production?
I mean, this is a similar topic. I mean, the richest people have more than enough money to supply the whole world. And if we talk about ongoing issues such as poverty and hunger, the richest people could easily solve that, but they haven't done so. And I don't think they will do for this virus. And though ethically it sounds like the best thing on paper, I don't think it would work, and I don't think it ever will happen.
An exception is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which has been funding vaccine research during the coronavirus pandemic and also before it. They've been a great organization, and they've really helped to improve healthcare throughout the world.
And Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has always really been out there trying to use their money to fight for all these causes. I think at the end of the day, though, it's the production that's really harming the coronavirus vaccine effort. As we've said in our individual sections, certain vaccines take a lot longer to produce than others. And then also there's the sort of storage requirements that some of them have. And while that might not be a problem, say in Scandinavia, storing stuff at minus 20 degrees Celsius, that's a very different problem in countries like Botswana, Kenya. So I think there's definitely a lot of hurdles to overcome as this rollout progresses. And it definitely can't just boil down to one country does their own rollout schemes.
So we've decided that however much money we have, manufacturing can never keep up with demand, and the vaccine's going to be distributed unequally everywhere. So what do you think of the UK's priority list? Do you agree that older, more vulnerable people should be given the vaccine first?
I would agree, because these people are most at risk from dying, and ultimately we want to reduce deaths. Obviously the economy is very important, but I think preventing deaths should be the priority, especially in the early stages of the vaccination program that we have at the moment. We can discuss key workers getting vaccines a bit later, once everyone in the at serious risk of dying from coronavirus is vaccinated, and then we should go on to, obviously key workers should be one of the first after that to get it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it is interesting though how there isn't a consensus on the priority list. So while we here probably all agree that the UK's method works for what we want, I think it's interesting how other countries have prioritized getting the economy back up and running, prioritized getting those younger people back into outside business. I think it also lends itself to the sort of misconceptions around vaccines. I think these people sort of think that, oh, once you get a vaccine, that's it, you can't get COVID, you're immune to go out and continue working.
Yeah, one of those cases is Indonesia, where they've restricted the vaccines to under 30s initially, and then under 40s, and they're progressing their way up. And though the economy is definitely important, I mean, Britain was drifting in and out of lockdown for the last year in order to preserve the economy, with schemes such as Eat Out to help out, to try and bring more money in. But ultimately, I think the goal should be to save everyone's lives and reduce deaths and take the pressure off the NHS. And I agree with what Britain's doing.
Well,
Yeah.
looking at the priority list, I think it's important that key workers get their vaccine before the elderly population, because they're most they have the most exposure to the virus, and it's important to understand that they're the ones that are dealing with the pressure and are constantly being exposed to the virus through hospitals.
Yeah, I think especially doctors and nurses that are on the front line should be, along with elderly people, they should also be vaccinated. I believe they're in the first group, and hopefully all of them will be vaccinated by mid-February. It looks like the government is on target with that, which is obviously a really good thing compared to all the other things that have happened during the pandemic. And if that happens, if all the frontline workers can be vaccinated, that'd be really good. And that'll prevent self-isolation, and that will mean that we can keep the hospitals running, especially as if there's another wave of, say, the South African variant.
Yeah, the new variants have really chucked a twist in the tail of this whole coronavirus pandemic, but I think the UK's response and all the things that we discussed, people can work their way through it. Shri, what do you think?
So I think that we're looking at the science a lot here, and then people are really focused on how the vaccine works and all that. But I think it's really important to understand that the political side and economic side must also be considered here. And it's a more holistic approach to the vaccine process if we consider all these factors. So I think that's what we've discussed today. So, yeah.
Thank you all for your contributions, and I hope our audience has enjoyed this discussion today. And Anupam has some closing words.
Yeah, so that was our first episode of Medisodes. Hope you guys all enjoyed. And remember, when it comes to the vaccine, please try and take the vaccines if you can. But again, don't assume you're invincible just because you've taken it. It's really a situation where we're all in this together. But thanks for listening. Remember to like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And yeah, we'd really appreciate it if you kept watching. New episodes every week. We'll be back next week with another video. Thanks for listening.